Hey tea heads, this is Don from Mayleaf. It's Sunday morning here in London. I'm feeling very groggy. It was a very late night last night, but I really wanted to drink this tea this morning. And so I thought, let's get it done. Let's turn the cameras on. Let's do a full tasting of this tea. I have tasted it before, obviously, when I sampled it, and I tasted it when it arrived, but I didn't really do a focused tasting. It was simply a tasting to just check that it was still a great tea, and I was happy to approve it. And so this is the first proper tasting, focused tasting that I'm going to be doing on this tea, and I wanted to obviously record it. So the cameras are on, so excuse me if I'm a little bit woozy, but let's dive into this tea. This is Jin Mu Dan black tea, also known as golden peony black tea. I don't have our Mayleaf name for it quite yet. Hopefully by the end of this session, I'll have an idea about what the name is of this tea. But if you search for this tea, you may see it being called golden peony. And what's interesting about this tea is it's a black tea made from a relatively new cultivar. So we always talk about cultivars, and, you know, our preference generally is towards more heirloom cultivars that have stood the test of time, that have just that are indigenous or heirloom to the area. But obviously cultivars are being created all the time. Cultivar means cultivated variety. And so those creations of cultivars can happen in the wild, but can also happen by tea institutes. And this is a cultivar created by the Fujian Tea and Research Institute by crossing two other cultivars. I think that the cross is between a Huangdan and a Huangguanyin cultivar, although there is conflicting information. Some people say that it's Tieguanyin and Huangjingui. Does it really matter to you? Does any of that matter to you? Not really. All that you really need to know is that this is a relatively new cultivar, probably about 20 years in existence, this cultivar. And it was primarily developed by the Fujian Tea Research Institute, probably extra words at the end of that, primarily for oolong teas, primarily to make yancha. And last year we bought in Forest Jam. Forest Jam is a black tea that was made again with a cultivar that is primarily used for oolong teas in Taiwan. And so I'm interested in this whole thing of taking a cultivar developed for oolongs, which generally means that they are cultivated to withstand roasting and cultivated to have a more vibrant aromatic profile straight off on the dry leaf. And see how they translate to black teas, because I think that usually that works very well. And so this is a new-ish cultivar, 20 years, which is new in the world of tea, called Jin Mu Dan, primarily for an oolong variety, but made into a black tea, and is being made more and more into a black tea because I think it really, really works well. And because it's a new cultivar and is I don't know, but I'm assuming that the cultivar has been put onto the market at a relatively lower price. This is a very affordable black tea. And so we've been looking for golden peony for a few years, never quite hit the mark. This one did. And so we snapped it up. And I think the reason why it really has a great place on our shelf is that it's a very good price point for a very, very good tea. Well, hopefully a very, very good tea. As I said, I did sample it, or I did approve it when it first came in. You can take a look at these leaves. Let's get macro on this. So, raisin black leaves. Scope it. This is season March 2022, Jin Mu Dan cultivar. This is from Songxi in Wuyi Mountains area, Fujian, China. Picking is going to be young leaves, young to medium leaves, and the elevation's around 600 meters. Let's get this rinsed. Well, we'll first smell the dry leaf. I remember when I first tasted this tea, sampled it, I was amazed at the beautiful sweet profile of it. Last year we purchased Forest Jam, we purchased Candy Tree Black. For those of you who have tasted those teas, you'll kind of maybe have a little bit of a inkling into what sort of profile this tea is. Let's see if we can get a bubble. Go on, blow a bubble. Yes. So yeah, you may have an inkling as to the sort of style of this tea because it is one of those sweet aromatic teas. I want more. Yeah, I want a bit more than that. I measured 3 grams. Probably do more, closer to 4. Right, already getting a good whiff off this. Let's tidy this up and put this away. And we're going to have a sniff of an as yet unnamed tea. Jin Mu Dan, Golden Peony are the classic names for this Wuyi black tea. Here we go. It has a really, it really reminds me of a high quality Chiman black tea in terms of the smell of the dry leaf. And I think the similarities will probably end there or taper off afterwards. It really reminds me of that. So tons and tons of malt, tons and tons of cooked down milk, like panna cotta, and a distinctly buttery brown butter note, although that's less in Chiman, but the malt and the sort of milky note is very common in the dry nose dry leaf. Told you it was going to be a bit of a woozy session. Nose dry leaf of Chiman, and it reminds me of that. But there are some little floral kickers there, and they're still yet to come out. But I would start to my sort of visual memory is flicking through sort of more purpley pink flowers like lilac. It's light though. Let's see what happens when we give this a rinse. I've got to work out the brewing parameters for this tea, but I'm going to guess with the size of that leaf that it's around 95 degrees Celsius. And another bubble. Go on. Show us what you got. Yes. I don't know why that gives me so much pleasure. I think it was because it was an unexpected feature of this pet that I didn't really realize until people wrote to me going, and it blew bubbles. And I was like, what? And then I looked at it and sure enough, little piggy blows bubbles. Okay. Smell of the wet leaf. Well, still in the Chiman sort of territory. Oh, okay though. But there's more floral sweetness that, again, we're gonna really dive into this sort of oolong element of this tea. Okay. Oh, it's such a comforting black tea smell. So the malt is still there. Give you a macro of that. The malt is still there. I'm getting like the milk is still there. I'm also getting a little bit of a rocky note to it. So there's malts and rocks. The flowers are violets and lilacs. Violet, maybe more. And there's that the creaminess of that brown butter moves into a like thick Greek yogurt or yogurt. I say yogurt, but thick Greek yogurt with, is it honey? Maybe a very light floral honey, but there's a okay, so what I'm going to say is a bit of a strange thing. I'm going to use the words that best describe it to me, but it's going to sound weird. There's a thin, light, but potent aromatic. And when I say thin, I mean it's in the sort of higher territory, but it's not floral and it's not really fruity. It smells almost like good dust, like dusty, but like Like, you know how flowers can have a dusty aroma? And I don't know if that makes sense to people out there, but there's a sort of a beautiful sweet, it's like if you sniffed icing sugar, right? It's sort of sweet and slightly dusty. Yeah, it has icing sugar, but it's something deeper than that. Oh, I know what it is. It's a fruit. It's a dusty smelling fruit. That sounds weird, doesn't it? Is it figs? It's figs. Is it fig leaf? No, I think it's just straight up figs. Yes, like there's a bit of guava as well, but there's this distinct sort of dusty, you know how figs, even if you get a ripe fig and you tear it, it has a green, fresh, again, I'm going to say slightly sort of dusty aroma. I know that sounds unappetizing, and I hope that you're getting me the right way. Like, people talk about dusty aromatics for flowers, like dusty rose or dusty, you know, but there's a dusty, I'm going to stop saying dusty. There's a very fresh, sweet, powdery, that's better, powdery smell, and that powdery smell is of figs. Figs and Greek yogurt. Figs and Greek yogurt with some flowery honey over the top. That sounds better than dust. I don't know why, I just associate it with like powder, and I don't think that the smell of dust is actually... I'd have to dive deeper. I know it sounds weird. I'd have to dive deeper as to what are those smells. I would love to really dive into understanding the chemical profiles of all these smells. But there's a powdery smell that's associated with flowers. There's a powdery smell that I associate with like icing sugar and with figs. And this is fig central. Tons and tons of figs. Figs in Greek yogurt. That's one of my favorite things. Figs, Greek yogurt, and a little drizzle of honey. Okay, that was boiling, so I'm just going to take it down a little bit, bring it to about 95. This is all guesswork, but just looking at the size of those leaves, I think that that's a good starting point. I'm going to brew for about 25 seconds. That should do it. I don't know if I caught that in any camera. I'm always shooting alone, by the way, so if you see me doing this, I'm trying to look at screens. And it doesn't help that that camera up there, I didn't even flip the screen around, so I'm just staring at a lens and just hoping, is it in? Is it in? Here we go. I can look up there, so I can see that that's in frame. Let's take a look at the color. Sort of a little caramel, light caramel color, but it has a sort of, I know that I'm in a green cup, but it seems to have a little bit of a fresh, dare I say it, figgy green quality to it. Okay, nice thickness there, looks like anyway. See if I can show you in here. Quite nice and thick. Cheers, everybody. Oh, what is it about the first sip of hot tea in the morning? It's like that, your body's cue to go, oh, okay, let's brighten up, let's wake up. But it's so comforting. This is thick. And already I'm getting oolong quality to the aromatics. Lots of guava through the nose. Guava and fig, I sort of relate a little bit. It's like, just in my mind, guava is like a tropical version of a fig, which is much more Mediterranean to me. I adore figs. Fig leaf ice cream. If you've never had fig leaf ice cream, oh my God, one of my favorite flavors. That and brown bread, for those of you who know. Fig leaf ice cream. One time I tried a fig leaf kombucha that I still think is the best kombucha I've ever tried. It's a fig leaf kombucha. Shout out to Jar. Come on, you got to make that. That's got to become commercialized. And any kombucha people out there, I'm telling you, fig leaf kombucha is the bomb. Okay, let's taste this. So I'm getting a lot of that. I'm not gonna say the word dust. Again, I'm saying something that is probably going to sound unappetizing, but for me, it really is such a lovely note. And again, I would link it to the fig note. It's like if you, like, is it creosote or like coal? Not like charcoal burning smell or roasty note, but like there's this sort of little sprinkling of, again, something powdery and bright, and there must be a chemical, a compound that is common, I'm going to guess, in certain things like figs, and maybe in certain things like, is it creosote? Like this sort of little fresh little fresh, bright, powdery note. And this is the last time I'm going to be talking about it. I'm also getting that butter. Yeah, and it's really, really oily in the mouth. Thick and oily. Thick, oily, buttery in the mouth. Moving to figs. Just loads of figs. The figs transform to guava afterwards. So as I breathe out through my nose afterwards, it sort of becomes a little bit tangier, a little bit more tropical. I'm getting violets. I'm getting lilacs. I'm getting gardenias. And that, I think, is the real element here of the oolong intention of this cultivar, that it's really representing those elements that I really love about Forest Jam and really love about Candy Tree Black, that there's this sort of sweet, and it's so sweet in my mouth afterwards. And the sweetness is like icing sugar and nashi pear. It's a very, very sweet, aromatic, flowery finish in the mouth that is very reminiscent of oolong teas. And I think the real joy of this tea and why it will be a tea that you will always want to come to when you feel like you want something that's just not just comforting and sweet and lovely, but then has got that little interesting edge, like this sort of figgy, powdery note and that buttery quality. So sweet in my mouth. 95 degrees. Second infusion. Just starting to open up, and I'm starting to pick up a little green note in the leaf as well. So, how is it being produced? You know, the roll doesn't look like they've rolled it to the full extent that they could have for a black tea, because then you would expect it to be darker, or maybe they haven't fermented stroke oxidized it for as long. Either way, by not rolling too much or by reducing that time of fermentation oxidation, they are going to bring the tea a little bit closer into that oolong territory as well. Just some musings. I have no idea how correct they are, but there's a definite green look to the liquor, and I should have brought a glass Gongdao Bay, but I didn't feel like it today. But let's see if you can see it here. Again, doesn't help that this is in Real, but I have nothing else to offer you. If I had a white cup, I'd put it in there, but you're going to have to take my word for it. It has a sort of green look to it, and the leaves, they're starting to show a little bit of a sort of green blush to them. Almost reminiscent of how a heavily roasted dansong looks like, where you've got that red-brown edging and you've got a little bit more of a khaki green heart to the leaf. Cheers, everybody. Flowers, bouquet, violets, lilacs, butter. Moving to fig. That fig, the skin of the fig, that skin that sort of is like, is it a bit too green? No, it's just sweet enough. That's what I love about figs, is that you can eat it without feeling like it's cloying or too sweet. It's just got that really fresh note to it. Clearly, fig has to be part of the name of this tea. Gardenias on the nose, lots of flowers on the nose. Very aromatic, very, very sweet, very, very delicious. Oh, ooh, and thick and buttery. Oily in the mouth. Moving to a very, very, very discreet dryness. Just in the center of the tongue, nothing extreme, and extremely, extremely juicy. I'm going to intentionally overbrew this tea. And the reason for that is because as I try to get to know a tea, that's one of the things that I do. Extract more than you probably want, just to see what else is going on in the leaf that I can describe to you, because I'm not going to do like loads and loads of brews in front of the camera. I've got my Sunday, you got your life to live, and we're probably going to always hit the half-hour mark anyway, because I tend to rabbit on a little bit, as you well know. I didn't set that camera up very well. Oh yeah, see, it's going to be a forgotten brew. So I reckon that's probably long enough. Let's see. And then we'll smell the empty Gong Da Bei. And then I'll bid you adieu. Super delicious, sweet. Can't imagine anybody not liking it, unless you don't like the taste of figs and guava. Then sure, but all right, let's taste the strong brew of this. Let's see what happens when we intentionally overbrew. Handles it. A little bit more of the like chalky rockiness coming through, which is actually really nice, but it does give a little bit extra dryness in the mouth. Nothing extreme. It's a very, very forgiving tea. You can brew this without worrying. You can do forgotten brews of this. This for me is one of those teas that is just like a no-brainer in your cupboard. It's high quality and it's affordable relative to other specialty teas. I realize that, it depends on what you're comparing it to. And the reason why it's affordable is because it's going to be young trees, it's going to be new cultivar, it's in that mode of commercialization, which we tend to sort of, tiptoe around because we want to get the best out of it. And this is the best out of it from my point of view. And you avoid it when it doesn't represent a terroir well, or it is too sort of Coca-Cola, right? It just has too much of an aromatic without much oomph. This has that juiciness. This has this aftertaste. This is a very successful black tea, cultivar crossover, in my view. Okay, let's have a sniff of the Gong Dao Bei. In terms of body sensation, it's just warming me up and cooling me down at the same time. And it is a delight. Buttery, again, butter. Croissant, butter croissant, but not just a butter croissant. Take the croissant, heat it up just to get it like a little bit even more glossier. Then cut it and then add a bit more butter in. Really buttery, and then it's got a fruit note, and that fruit note is, yeah, you could say fig, you could say guava, but it's got more of a straight up black currant jam in a buttered warm croissant. And I wonder again if there's that chemical crossover in the black currant, you know, that little interesting, I'm going to say the word tang, even though it's not sour. There's a certain bright note in black currants that I think maybe crosses over as well. Absolutely amazing. Croissant, butter, black currant jam. One last look at these leaves. You can see hopefully that there is a green tinge to them. Name for this tea, fig and butter. Maybe it's just something simple like fig butter black. Fig butter black, quite like it. Butter fig black, butter fig, no. You've got to say them out loud. See if they come off the tongue. Fig butter black. Have you tried fig butter black? Have you tried butter fig? No, yeah, fig butter black. Maybe fig butter black, maybe something else. I don't know, but definitely a very figgy and buttery tea. That's it, tea heads. Check out other videos, taste our teas wherever you are in the world by browsing mayleaf.com, and come visit us if you're ever in London. Other than that, I'm Don from Mayleaf. Thank you for being a part of the revelation of true tea. Stay away from those tea bags, keep drinking the good stuff, and spread the word, because nobody deserves bad tea. See ya.